Over the last 3 months, HB and I have been repairing and attempting to lease out our recently purchased rental property, and we finally, after 3 months, have it leased. So we spent the final days of having this house vacant, creating a list of things that needed to be addressed and fixed prior to the tenant moving in. And so we got to work, with the first item on our to-do list being the sprinkler system.
Now to test the sprinklers. Oh!
Oh my god.
That's a problem. Working with a collection of fine tools. Some say just use a screwdriver. I say, why not make it extremely hard on yourself? Lefty loosey, righty tighty. Never know, never know. Stand back. Ooh! I don't see no leaks. How long it's been since the system's been on? Got a little bit of muddy wood. Take that out of there. Oh my god. Woo! So the sprinklers haven't worked all year. They've actually, I think, haven't worked in about 2 years, which is mainly one of the biggest reasons why this area of grass started dying. It wasn't getting watered enough, and it wasn't getting enough sun because the tree had not been pruned all that much throughout that past couple of years. So right now I'm using the sprinkler system. I'm going zone by zone to see what sprinkler heads I have to replace. That way we no longer have to have the neighbor and a combination of me coming up here every week just to start the sprinklers and water the grass. Now, it may not seem like we made a lot of progress with the sprinkler system considering, well, a lot of them broke when we first turned them on, but this is huge progress considering the sprinkler system hasn't worked for almost 2 years and has been a huge pain point about working on this house, is just getting the sprinkler system to operate. So, huge win considering we've been working on this a long time. Aubrey and I's father came here recently and fixed the last bit of pipe. All that is sealed, and now we can at least test it and see what needs to be replaced, and once we replace them, all done.
Once the sprinkler system was done, we had to clean. The house had already been cleaned professionally earlier this summer, but there were a few areas that were a bit rough. So from the moment that we listed this rental property as for lease to the moment that we actually leased it, it was exactly 87 days, which was actually quite a lot longer than I thought that it would take. If you would have asked me at the beginning of summer how long it would have taken to get this house leased, I would have said maybe 30 to 45 days. I was definitely hoping it would be less than that, and it very literally took twice as long. The first reason why I think it took longer to lease was definitely price. We, I think, had our price a bit too high at the beginning, and as a result, it slowed the ability to get the house rented, especially whenever it was at that higher price point. Whenever we lowered the price of the rent to a more reasonable rent, we ended up getting a lot more activity on the listing. Now, price wasn't the only factor though. We were super picky with who we had in the house. We ended up running background checks, credit scores, credit history reports on every single person that had a showing, and if they didn't have a over 600 credit score, if they had like a bad debt to income ratio, we were really looking for a very specific type of renter, and as a result, we turned down probably a dozen renters before we said yes to the one that we ended up leasing the house to. But all of that doesn't matter anymore because the house is leased to a, I hope, great tenant, and it's also leased for 12 months. We're not gonna have to worry about this for a long time. But it wasn't just the leasing process that caught me by surprise for this house. It was also some of the oddball regulation that we also had to face. Now, I didn't realize, but certain cities actually can regulate which houses are up for rent and how many of the city houses are available to be leased out, which is something that I didn't even realize was a thing, but apparently it is. And the city that our rental property is in has this type of regulation. Now, our house is located in an HOA, which we knew, and this HOA requires for rental properties to be registered within the HOA. Now, I can see why they do this. They just want to keep tabs on like who's living in the properties. The HOA also has a ton of amenities like community pools, gyms, parks, things like that, and you have to have a key to access these amenities. So unless you're registered, you don't get a key. So in order to get your tenants a key, you have to register them. So I understand that. But the city that our rental property is in also has a rental registry, and you actually have to apply for a single family rental license in order to rent out your house, which I thought was crazy. Now, I didn't even think to check that this was something that this city required because I didn't even know that this was a thing. But the way that we found this out was that whenever we found our tenant, he actually had to go and switch the utilities into his name, and he wasn't able to do that without the single family license for the rental property he's renting, and we weren't able to get that because I hadn't applied for it because I didn't know I was supposed to. Now, fortunately, the process was pretty quick. We had to pay a $100 fee. We have to get an inspection on the property, but the process is pretty fast and it shouldn't cause any issues. But I had no idea that this was a thing. And so for anyone who is interested in buying rental properties, I would definitely look into that because I know in the city that I live in and that I grew up in, you can kind of rent out any house you want to. And I thought that was kind of the universal standard. And I had heard of HOAs in neighborhoods regulating who can and can't rent out their house, but I had never heard of cities doing it. So this definitely caught me by surprise. So yeah, that's the update for our rental property. Hopefully we do not have any updates for y'all anytime soon, but as we begin the process of looking for this second property, we will definitely keep you guys up to date. But now back to the Turo fleet.
Now, just because we have a new tenant in our rental house, it's not all roses over here. We actually have a new damage claim on our brand new 2011 Toyota Yaris. And my beard fell off. But we're not talking about that right now. Let's talk about this. Well, this vehicle was on a trip for about a 4-day rental, and it came back with this, what seems to be a really bad repair on a pretty significant door ding. Now, from what I can tell from the outside, they actually sanded down this entire door to prep this little area. Then they proceeded to prep this area and fill it in with some filler, but then decided to paint everything but that area. Now, it may not look that bad from a distance. Actually, standing about 5 feet away, you may not even be able to tell other than just a little trouble area, but the entire door is dull. So you can tell from the outside of this square, almost the entire length of the door, they quite literally sanded left and right, up and down with something that wasn't really used for prepping. I don't know if they used a Scotch-Brite or if they used the back end of a sponge or my grandmother's razor. I couldn't tell you. Now, when we asked the guest for some transparency on what happened to this door, she said that the car wash did it. Then we asked her which car wash, and she says she doesn't remember. Well, be on the lookout for a car wash that does really bad paint and body repair and actually didn't even clean the car. That's a real shame because this car was actually in really great condition and had no damage on this door at least, and now we have to file a claim through Turo, but we'll keep you guys updated.
Now we have to move on to fixing our Ford Escape. Our Ford Escape is one of the last cars on the docket to be fixed and has a few minor issues like a brake job as well as a more severe issue which involved a PCM replacement. But this week HP was able to carve out some time to finally get this fixed, and we sent it off to Firestone where they'll make some of the final touches.
We got the black Escape dropped off at Firestone for a full brake bleed and we can get it back on the platform. Our Toyota Yaris claim has been initiated and our house has been leased out. But we'll make sure to keep you guys updated and let you know how things shake out. But as always, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And we'll see you in the next episode.